Let's talk about the rules regarding wrongful death cases here in Alabama. How do these cases get started, and walk us through this process?
Yeah, I mean, typically there's in Alabama, obviously there are criminal penalties for, murder or wrongful homicide. But on the civil context where you're looking for money damages, wrongful death laws in Alabama are there to provide compensation for the families or the people, the heirs of someone that's wrongfully killed as a result of somebody else's negligence or carelessness. In Alabama, wrongful death damages are punitive only in nature. So they're really designed to try to punish the wrongdoer's conduct. So the more wrong or careless the conduct, potentially the higher amount of money you could get for a wrongful death in Alabama. And the idea is that it's designed to preserve human life. So the death of someone who is wealthy or makes a lot of money is going to be worth the same amount in court as someone who is not wealthy or may not have the socioeconomic status of somebody else. So that's kind of how it sets up in Alabama in terms of wrongful death damages.
When you talk about the burden of proof, that's a lot on the attorney to have to prove there in these cases.
Yeah, absolutely. So in a civil case, this is not the burden of proving your case beyond a reasonable doubt like it is in a criminal case. In a simple negligence case, you have to prove that you're more likely than not to be correct in terms of the evidence that you presented at trial. And if you are, the jury's instructed that they have to enter a verdict for you regardless of whether you haven't proved it beyond a reasonable doubt. Medical cases are a little bit different. There's a higher burden of proof in them. But in general, you have the burden of proving your case to the satisfaction of the jury.
Okay. All right. Well, we do have Ellie on the line. Go ahead, Ellie, with your question.
Hi. My question is, are you subject to the 5-year look-back for Medicaid if you transfer your home to your adult child caregiver?
That's a good question. So simply, if you're going to try to qualify for Medicaid in the future, at that point where you apply for Medicaid, Medicaid will look back and see for 5 years to see if you have transferred any assets to any persons. If you've done that, then you can potentially not qualify for Medicaid. That's a pretty specific answer. You probably question. You probably want to talk to an elder law attorney to be sure about this. But in generally, all transfers are going to be looked at pretty carefully. I don't know if there's an exception for a caregiver. I do know there can be an exception for an adult disabled child. So again, specific question, you need to talk to an elder law attorney about that.
All right, thank you for your call, Ellie. Let's go to the phone line still. Dale, good morning to you. You can go ahead with your question.
Yes, I want to know if you moved into a place at the first of the month and you ain't got no hot water, you can't get no 220 to your stove and to your dryer. Can you withhold the rent to get it fixed?
Well, I think the Landlord-Tenant Act would allow you to break the lease and then move out without penalty, and then they would have to prorate the rest of the month, the lease. I don't think it allows you to make the repairs and then withhold that from the lease, but your remedy would be to simply move out of the apartment.
All right, thank you guys so much for your questions. Now, if you didn't get your question answered, remember you can always call our friends over at Timberlake and League. Thank you so much for joining us.